Chapter 811. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. It was a very faint sound, but it brought Ethan back to his senses. He quickly moved away from Olivia. What was he doing? Why did he take advantage of Olivia while she was asleep? If Olivia woke up, he wouldn't be able to explain his actions to her. Ethan quickly went to the door and said nervously, "What's up?" Kelvin rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Was he seeing things? He thought he saw Ethan blush. "About that, the doctor asked me to bring these meds for Mrs. Miller's fever," Kelvin said. "Okay." Ethan silently took the meds. Then, he asked, "Has the person who escaped been caught yet? The weather conditions at sea at night are too harsh. We can't send out the drones. So we haven't located him yet. Don't worry, he's taking the young master with him. He couldn't possibly have gotten too far away." "Okay. Keep me posted." "Understood." Ethan closed the door and went back to Olivia's side. She didn't show any signs of waking up. He then placed a palm on her forehead and felt that the fever wasn't coming down at all. Ethan looked at the meds with a troubled expression. How was he going to feed meds to an unconscious person? After giving it some thought, he felt that there was no better way. In the end, he grounded the meds up and fed them carefully into Olivia's mouth. Olivia's body reflexively resisted the insertion of foreign objects into her mouth, but she was eventually forced to swallow the meds. Ethan sighed in relief when he saw that she had swallowed them. He then tucked her in properly and quietly left the room. Given how their relationship was right now, they weren't ready to meet yet. Then, Ethan went to another room to look at Alicia. Ethan was used to seeing Connor's face, but his features looked fine on a girl too. He caressed Alicia's cheeks lightly. They were soft and tiny. He didn't dare to press down too hard for fear of hurting her. She was so tiny and light as a feather. Gradually, Alicia's lashes began to move. Her eyes opened before Ethan had the chance to leave. Alicia blinked as she looked at the handsome man before her. "Mister," she called out in her adorable voice. Ethan was sad to hear her call him that. She was his daughter after all. But he didn't dare to correct her. He couldn't risk Olivia discovering his true identity. Alicia was still too young to understand the complicated emotions in Ethan's eyes. His eyes were like the sea, deep and unfamiliar to her. Despite that, she reached out to try and hold his hand. Ethan pulled Alicia into his embrace and said in a deep and emotional voice, "My child, we meet at last." He had spent countless nights in agony. His heart would be in unbearable pain whenever he thought about the twins. He had bought so many clothes and toys for them. But in the end, he received the news of their deaths. His pain was no less than Olivia's. Now, they were finally reunited. Ethan carefully wrapped his arms around Alicia and his warm tears fell on her neck. Alicia raised her head in confusion. She met Ethan's gaze as she reached out and wiped his tears away. She tilted her head. "Mister." Alicia didn't understand why this strangely familiar man was crying like that. Chapter 812. It was too hard for a child, like Alicia, to understand the complicated emotions of an adult. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Ethan was still very emotional. "Dear child, you must have endured a lot of hardships, right?" he asked. Hardship. Alicia didn't know what that was. All she knew was that she was happy as long as she was with her brother and father. "Are you hungry?" Ethan asked as he quickly ordered some people to bring over some food. Alicia's eyes lit up as she looked at the food before her. However, her eyes dimmed as she was about to eat. "Zach," she said. Ethan patted her head. "Don't worry, I've sent people to look for your brother. You'll be able to see him soon. For now, eat. Your brother will also get his share when we find him." Ethan could tell Alicia was starving, but she didn't eat in a hurry. It was like she was born to be elegant. Alicia may have looked like him, but her actions carried her mother's elegance. The more Ethan looked at Alicia, the more he liked her. It was fine if she couldn't address him as her father for the time being. He was content as long as she was alive and he could stay by her side. After eating for a while, Alicia noticed the man with her wasn't eating. Being the good girl she was, Alicia pushed some food before Ethan and said, "Here, mister. Eat." It was a simple gesture, but it brought Ethan to tears. He hugged her again. "Good girl." Alicia thought he was being weird, but she didn't dislike him at all. She looked at his face carefully and felt he was very handsome. Not only that, but he was very patient too. He would pick out all the bones in the fish and feed it to her. He also told her stories and reassured her that her brother would be with her soon. He even gave her some candy. Alicia liked this man a lot. It was dawn. The sea had gradually calmed down. The rain stopped too, and the sky cleared. Olivia's fever was on and off. Sometimes it would get better. Other times, she would be burning up. This went on for several days. When the ship finally docked at an island, Olivia finally regained consciousness after coming out of the terrible conditions on the ship. She opened her eyes to the piercing sunlight outside the window. She covered her eyes with her hand. She had just woken up. In the past few days, she had been surviving on IV drips. Olivia felt dazed, and her head was heavy. Then, a man's voice said, "Miss Fordham, how are you feeling?" Olivia blinked a few times before she came to her senses. She got up slowly while holding her head. Ethan quickly adjusted her pillows to help her sit up properly. "We're on an island right now. A few days ago, you got a fever after you got out of the ocean. It lasted for a few days. How are you feeling now?" "My head hurts, and I'm thirsty," Olivia said hoarsely. As soon as she said that, Ethan held a glass of water beside her lips. "Drink this." Olivia didn't have the chance to ask about her children. Rather, she instinctively started gulping down the water. She was drinking too quickly and some of the water dripped from the corner of her lips. "Slow down. Don't drink too fast." Ethan reached out and wiped the water from the corner of her lips. The moment his fingers touched her skin, Olivia looked at him cautiously. Ethan suddenly realized what his current identity was. Then, he nonchalantly changed the subject. "You just woke up, so you can only eat liquid foods for the time being. There's no need to rush. I've already prepared some." Olivia felt more relaxed after she drank the water. "My children, where are they?" she asked. Ethan's expression turned grave. "Alicia is here, but someone took Zach. We don't know where he is yet." Chapter 813. Olivia instantly became anxious. She grabbed Ethan's sleeve and asked, "What did you say?" "He was taken." "Where was he taken to?" "Calm down, Miss Fordham. I'll tell you what happened." Ethan then took out the surveillance footage and showed it to her. "Look here, this was the man who took Zach. But from the looks of it, he willingly went with the man. I think he knows the man." Olivia calmed down after she heard that. She looked at the video repeatedly. The video might be fuzzy, but it did show that Zach willingly went with the man. The man who took him was none other than Jack. Olivia relaxed a little when she realized that Jack was the one who took Zach. After all, the situation on the ship had been very chaotic. Jack didn't even know she was on board. If he had jumped into the sea to save Alicia, she would have lost both of her children. Olivia was also sure Jack saw someone jump into the ocean to save Alicia. He had snuck onto the ship to begin with. Things would be bad if he were discovered, so his only option was to leave Alicia on the ship and escape with Zach. Olivia didn't know what to feel. She had just found her children, but one was separated from her again. Ethan added, "The girl's name is Alicia." "Alicia," Olivia muttered under her breath. She had thought about a lot of names. But she never did decide on the names of the children. She didn't expect Jack to give them such pretty names. "Where is she?" "She's in the next room. I'll bring you to her." Olivia frantically got off the bed, forgetting that her body was still weak. She fell over as soon as her legs touched the floor. But fortunately, Ethan reacted quickly and caught her. Olivia couldn't control her momentum, so she fell into his arms. Olivia was dizzy. She tried to get up, but was too weak to do so. "Miss Fordham, the doctor said you need rest. Why don't I carry you?" "Okay, thanks." Olivia wanted to see her daughter as soon as possible, so she didn't refuse. It was the first time in several months Olivia was in such close contact with a man while she was conscious. Even though it was Logan, whom she trusted, she still felt uneasy. Logan might have tanned skin, but a faint smell of shampoo came from him. It was lemon-flavored, a refreshing scent. While she was being carried in his arms, Olivia could feel that Logan was very well built despite his slim look. She didn't dare to move at all. Ethan was the only man she had ever been with. So being in the embrace of another man made her uneasy. Ethan was also very careful when he was carrying her. He was afraid that she might find out about his true identity. After they left the room, Olivia saw Alicia playing in the pool. She was wearing a pink swimming suit with wings on the back. There was a bright smile on her face. An innocent smile like that could make anyone feel better just by looking at it. Olivia had no words to describe how happy she felt when she saw Alicia standing there unscathed and smiling at strangers. The scenery on the island was beautiful. It looked a little like the island that Ethan designed for Olivia. Blue skies, white clouds, coconut trees, and a forest. Music played as some workers blew bubbles near Alicia with bubble machines. She laughed happily, her laughter, pure and innocent. Then, Alicia turned around and saw Olivia. She ran toward Olivia happily. "Mom," Ethan set Olivia down. Then, Alicia jumped into Olivia's arms as soon as she was on the floor. Chapter 814. Blood ties were inseverable. Even if Alicia had never seen Olivia before, she recognized her mother immediately. In the pictures Jack showed her, Olivia had a warm smile, and she had hair. Olivia was also slim and frail at the moment, but Alicia could tell she was her mother. Olivia's reaction was similar to Ethan's. She hugged Alicia tightly and couldn't stop crying tears of joy from the reunion. With Alicia in her arms, Olivia recalled all the struggles she had gone through on the day she was born. She thought she would never see her children again. But her baby had grown into a fine young lady. How could she not be moved to tears? Alicia was puzzled. The handsome man had just hugged her and cried a few days ago. Why was her mother crying too? She didn't understand. Alicia wiped Olivia's tears away gently and even blew on her eyes. "Don't cry," she said. In the past, Jack would blow on her wounds whenever she was hurt. Then she'd stop crying. Olivia raised her hands to wipe her tears away. She then gently cupped Alicia's face. She took a good look at the girl's pretty little face. She looked a lot like Ethan, but Olivia still loved her to bits. "Your name is Alicia, right?" Alicia nodded and replied, "Yes. I'm Alicia." Olivia's tears started flowing again. She crouched on the floor and caressed Alicia's face with trembling fingers. She murmured, "It's a good name. A very pretty name." Alicia didn't understand why Olivia would cry over her name. She reached out and touched Olivia's head. Olivia wiped her tears frantically and said, "I was sick, so my hair fell off. It'll grow back." She lifted Alicia into her arms and said, "Let's stay together forever, okay?" "Zach," Alicia reminded Olivia. "Yeah, I'll definitely find Zach. We'll all be together again." Alicia smiled when she heard that. Then, she thought about Ethan, who also promised to find Zach for her. She muttered, Mister, who is that?" Olivia asked. Alicia couldn't really describe Ethan. She didn't know his name. She only knew him as, Mr. Ethan slowly walked up to them. "You've just regained consciousness, Miss Fordham. You need to be looked at by a doctor. You should eat something. The staff will look after Miss Alicia here. It's safe here on the island." Olivia finally realized her surroundings were different. "Where are we? Where's Tobias?" "We were lucky that we happened to come across the Navy. They captured the pirates. Tobias' ship was under attack, but the good thing is that he didn't lose any of his cargo. You've been unconscious for the past few days. Tobias couldn't really take you with him since his ship wasn't in the best shape. The Navy brought us to the nearest island to rest up. We're in Arlandia territory now. There won't be any more pirates," Ethan explained. "How long was I out for?" "On and off for a few days. That's why your body's so weak. Miss Alicia recovered quicker than you. She only swallowed some seawater. I've observed her closely for the past few days. There aren't any more issues." Olivia nodded. "I'm so thankful you're here." "Thank you. You're too kind, Miss Fordham. I'm fully compensated by Mr. Rogers. Besides, we've been together for a few months. I think we can be considered friends. It's only natural that I help a friend out." "Friend? I don't need friends," Olivia said coldly as she thought about Mona. Chapter 815. Olivia tightened her arms around Alicia when she thought about how she brought misfortune to the people around her. Now that she had finally found her child, she swore to protect her no matter the cost. Olivia was relieved to know that both her children were still alive. The next thing she needed to do was nurse herself back to health. Then, she would try to uncover the truth in secret. As long as the people after her weren't found, she had to live her life on the run. If she ever got discovered, her children would be in danger too. She wasn't the one in the wrong. Why was she the one forced into hiding? She was an innocent woman. Why should she hide her children away their whole lives? Why were they forced to live like sewer rats? The mastermind behind it all was to blame. They caused her marriage to fall apart, destroyed her family, and separated her from her children. They were the reason Olivia lost everything. Olivia would never forget witnessing Mona's death before her eyes. She vowed to find the mastermind and make them experience the pain she felt 100 times over. But Ethan didn't have much of a reaction. "I'm sorry, I've overstepped," he apologized. Olivia regained her composure. "It's not your fault, it's mine." She didn't want to explain further. The less contact they had, the less sorrowful it would be when they went their separate ways. Family was the only thing she couldn't leave behind. Then, Olivia asked Alicia softly, "Do you want to eat with me?" "Sure," Alicia answered without any hesitation. Olivia reached out and Alicia obediently placed her hand in Olivia's palm. For an instant, Olivia felt like she was dreaming. She held Alicia's hand carefully. It was so small and soft that she dared not grab her hand too hard. She finally found her daughter after so long. Olivia walked very slowly. Ethan came up to her and said, "Miss Fordham, why don't I give you a hand? I don't want to risk you falling." Olivia was still dizzy, so she didn't refuse. "Thanks. It's nothing." Ethan held her arm and acted like a makeshift walking stick. Olivia's attention was completely focused on Alicia. She didn't notice the look Ethan had when he looked at her. She was looking at her child, but Ethan was looking at the both of them. Although Ethan couldn't reveal his true identity, they were still reunited as a family at the moment. Alicia raised her head and saw Olivia's calm face. She also noticed Ethan's tender and loving gaze. She rubbed her eyes. Was she seeing things? Why did this man look like the handsome man? The island had plenty of supplies. Other than the meals, there were also cakes and fruits. Olivia was puzzled. Why were there so many fresh fruits on the island? Is this a very prosperous place? She asked. Ethan explained. This isn't really a tourist spot. Not many people know about it. Some experienced tourists will come here every year. Although this island isn't as commercialized as other places, it's still being developed slowly. We might soon see some tourist spots here. Then, Olivia asked about the island's geographical location and coordinates. It was no wonder she thought the island looked familiar. It was very close to where Ethan's private island was. Unbeknownst to her, a lot of the food was transported over here from Ethan's island. "Miss Fordham, if you're not in a rush to get back to Aldenvine, I think you should stay here for a little longer to rest. You're still too frail." Chapter 816. Olivia frowned. She was still worried about Zach. Although Jack was with him, they had left in a rush. Not to mention, it had been raining. Were they okay? But Olivia knew that worrying didn't help. As things were, she couldn't contact Jack in the foreseeable future even if she went back to Arlandia. "All right, I'll wait for a little longer then," she agreed. Alicia was with her, so Jack would definitely reach out to her. But the most important thing she needed to do now was to nurse herself back to health. Alicia was a very well-behaved child. She never complained and wasn't a picky eater. She had no bad habits that were typically seen in children her age. Olivia was happy every day she was with Alicia, but she also felt sad for her. The reason why a child would be so well behaved was because she had been through a lot of hardships. Why else would a child be so obedient? Children who have been through a lot are usually the obedient ones. Olivia wasn't blaming Jack. She was very grateful that Jack saved her children and raised them by himself. She just felt bad for the children because of what they had been through. They were separated from their parents at such a young age. She swore to try her best and take care of them in the future. Mom. Alicia noticed that Olivia had spaced out, so she waved her hand at her. Olivia snapped back to her senses and said, "Yeah. I'm here." She reached out and patted Alicia on the head. With a loving smile, she asked, "Are you hungry?" Alicia observed Olivia's expression first, as if she was checking if Olivia was hungry too. She didn't want to cause trouble for Olivia. "Baby, if you want to eat, just let me know. You don't have to concern yourself with anything else. Tell me if you're hungry, thirsty, cold, or hot. You're not alone anymore. You have me." Alicia blinked like she didn't understand what Olivia was saying. "What I'm saying is, you can cry if you want to, and make a fuss if you want to. That's what children are supposed to do. I'm your mother. I'll love you no matter what. You can tell me anything you want." "Okay," Olivia said gently. "You can tell me what you want to eat. Sandwich, cake, and apple pie." This was the first time Alicia had ever asked her for anything. Olivia was pleasantly surprised. She reached out and tapped Alicia on the nose. "Good girl, I'll make them for you, okay? Thanks, Mom." Alicia finally displayed the innocence and liveliness a child her age should have. "Go play with Uncle Logan for a bit. I'll go make the food for you." "Okay." Alicia had gotten close with Logan after a few days. She also didn't know why she liked him so much. Uncle Logan. Alicia smiled as she quickly ran toward Logan. Ethan promptly crouched and spread his arms to catch Alicia in his embrace. "Slow down. You might trip," Logan said lovingly. "Okay." Olivia made the food and placed them on a table that was outside. She saw Alicia riding on Ethan's shoulder and shouting delightfully, "Go faster, horsey." Ethan held her hands firmly and allowed her to have her fun. The sea was blue, and the wind was blowing gently. It was a truly beautiful sight. It made Olivia a little emotional. She could have given the children a complete family if she hadn't gone through all those incidents with Ethan. But what was done couldn't be undone. The children were destined to be without a father. Chapter 817. Olivia's thoughts drifted far away. Her mother left her at a young age and she grew up in a single-parent family. Her father had been nothing but good to her. He gave her the best life and education he could. He taught her how to be generous, kind, and cheerful. But there were a lot of things that Jeff couldn't make up for, like the family sports days at school. There were a lot of activities that required both parents to complete together. Ever since Olivia was young, she has been envious of other people who had their mothers to hold their hands, cook them meals, and pick out their clothes. She always envied other people who had their mothers, no matter how outstanding she already was. Olivia swore she would take good care of her children when she had them. She would give them all the love she could and never let them grow up in a single-parent family. Then, she fell in love with Ethan at first sight. Initially, the feeling was mutual. Olivia felt like he was a man she could spend the rest of her life with. That's why she married him at such a young age. But in the end, she couldn't keep her word. She couldn't give her children a complete family. "Mom." Alicia saw Olivia and waved at her excitedly. "Come and have breakfast, dear," Olivia said. Ethan gazed at Olivia. She didn't have her long hair anymore, but she had the gentle expression on her face that she used to have when she saw him off. He had yearned for that smile for a long time. "I'm still weak, so I can't make complicated dishes. I just made some simple food. But I'll cook better food for you when I get better," Olivia said. Alicia smiled at her. "Thanks, Mom." Alicia wasn't a picky eater. She would be happy no matter what Olivia made for her. Olivia picked up a plate of food and handed it to Ethan. "This is for you. Thank you for entertaining her." Ethan was surprised. He didn't expect Olivia to prepare his share too. He scratched his head and said shyly, "It's nothing. I was just doing my job." "Thanks, Miss Fordham." Ethan hadn't eaten Olivia's cooking for a long time, so he took his time to savor every bite. He thought about the time when they were newly married. Olivia would get up early to prepare the clothes he needed for the day. Then, she would go to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. She would also adjust his tie and tell him to come home early with a smile. If he had known those days wouldn't last, he would have cherished every moment with her. Maybe then things wouldn't have ended up like this. He could only stay by her side, cautiously pretending to be another person. He couldn't even tell his child who he was. "What's wrong? Is the sandwich not to your liking?" Olivia asked when she saw his serious expression. Ethan's eyes were slightly reddened. Olivia knew Logan to be a tough guy. Was her food poisoned? "No, no, your cooking is great, Miss Fordham. It just reminded me of the food a person very important to me used to make. She used to cook for me every day, but I didn't cherish that." Olivia thought about his past and said compassionately, "I understand that feeling." Did Olivia see through him? Ethan began to scoff the food down. Then, Olivia sighed and said, "You must be missing your mother, right?" Ethan didn't know what to say. Olivia patted him on the shoulder. "It's fine. You don't have to hold back next time. Just eat with us. Alicia likes you. I'm also thankful to you. If my food reminds you of your home, you can treat it like your mother's cooking." Ethan was rendered speechless. Chapter 818. They ended up staying on the island for over a month. Life there was simple yet fulfilling. Olivia's health visibly improved too. Although the tumor in her body was still there, she was more hopeful for the future. Her relationship with Ethan also improved greatly after spending so much time together. She didn't have much energy, so Alicia would play with Ethan most of the time. It was unavoidable for the three of them to have some close contact. Like when Alicia wanted to play at the water park, Olivia couldn't refuse, so she agreed. Olivia had sat by the pool and did not intend to enter the water. Alicia could only look at Ethan. "Come play with me, Uncle Logan," she said. Ethan had been staying away from the water when he was disguised as Logan. He had applied a unique sap on his body that could temporarily change his skin tone without damaging his skin. But the only side effect was that the sap couldn't come into contact with too much water. Otherwise, the color would fade. Olivia hadn't seen through his disguise because of his skin tone. But the other reason was that he had also slimmed down a lot due to grief when Olivia faked her death. Olivia had lived with him for years. Her impression of him remained rooted in his former physique. He only had to alter his habits, figure, skin tone, accent and looks to keep her in the dark. Olivia was very familiar with the scars on his body too. If they got revealed in the water, Olivia might be able to guess his true identity. Ethan stood far away as he watched the interactions between Alicia and Olivia. Alicia knew Olivia was sick, so she couldn't play to her heart's content. Even Olivia looked at Ethan and asked, "Why don't you play with her for a bit?" Ethan pretended to look at his watch. "I ordered some fruits this morning. They should be here soon. I'll go take a look." Olivia was surprised Logan never turned down any of her requests before. This was the first time. She thought about it and realized he had never gone near the water other than when he jumped into the sea to save her. Was he afraid of the water? Olivia understood that everyone had their own weaknesses, so she didn't probe further. She continued to play with Alicia by the pool. Alicia was a little disappointed but quickly immersed herself in playing with Olivia. Alicia played for a little while, then, she picked a flower and placed it on Olivia's ear. "Mom, pretty," Alicia said sincerely. After over a month, a dense layer of short hair had grown on Olivia's head. Although it was still far from the flowing long hair she had before, she was no longer completely bald. Olivia smiled and wove a flower wreath for Alicia. When she met Alicia's expectant gaze, she thought about Connor. He had put a wreath on her some time ago. "Mom," Alicia looked at Olivia in confusion. Olivia came back to her senses and smiled. "It's nothing. I'll put it on you." Ethan's words about Connor being her son lingered in her mind. She shook her head. How could he be her son? She was sure Ethan said that because she was on her deathbed. Olivia dispelled the thought and placed the wreath on Alicia. Alicia hopped around the pool happily, but she suddenly slipped and fell into the deeper end. Olivia saw that and quickly jumped in. "Don't be afraid, Alicia. I'll save you." Something unexpected occurred as she grabbed Alicia and was about to get out of the pool, her leg cramped. Olivia had been resting most of the time and hadn't been exercising recently. So the sudden contact with the cold water made her leg cramp. An intense discomfort came from her leg. Olivia suddenly felt helpless, like the time she fell into the sea while pregnant. Alicia. Suddenly, a silhouette jumped into the water. Chapter 819. Olivia thought they were done for. It was a private pool, after all. There were no trainers or lifeguards. No one was there to save them in the case of an accident. Ethan had suddenly come from nowhere. He lifted Alicia up with one hand and grabbed Olivia's waist with the other. He then placed Alicia by the pool and turned to look at Olivia. "Are you okay, Miss Fordham?" My leg cramped. Let me catch my breath." "Okay, you can hold on to me." Olivia didn't have the luxury to care about being too close to a man. She wrapped her arms around Ethan's neck and waited for the cramp to pass. Ethan wasn't in a rush either. After he made sure Alicia was fine, he stood by quietly and waited. After around 10 seconds, Olivia's leg stopped cramping. She sighed in relief and came back to her senses. Then, she realized that her leg was pressed against Ethan. She had subconsciously got closer to him while her leg was cramping. The worst thing was that they were facing each other. Her chest was pressed against his. And while she was struggling with the cramp, she accidentally exposed her cleavage. Ethan was afraid that she might slip, so he had one hand wrapped around her waist and the other holding the railing. Olivia could feel the warmth of his body through the contact. Anyone would think that they were very intimate based on the position they were in. Olivia felt like it was inappropriate, so she promptly let go of him. She forgot that she was in the water and she sank. Luckily, the water wasn't too deep, so Ethan could grab her by the waist and bring her above the surface. Olivia was fully aware of her situation. She didn't struggle anymore as she pressed herself against Ethan's body. The most important thing was to get out of danger. Ethan was only wearing a thin, long-sleeved shirt. Olivia had inadvertently touched his tight and firm waist and abdomen when she wrapped her arm around him. The last time he saved her from the sea, she felt he had a good figure. But this time, they were in closer contact, and she could clearly feel that his body was extremely well built. Olivia felt shy, but she didn't dare to let go. She could only waltz as Ethan carried her out of the pool. Her cheeks were completely flushed. Ethan said, "Don't let go. I'll bring you back." Olivia kept her head lowered. She didn't know if her ears were playing tricks on her, but she felt like his voice had become deeper. She kept her head buried in his chest and didn't look at his face. She was very embarrassed. Alicia, the culprit that caused everything to happen, was the most innocent. She followed behind Ethan until they were back in the room. He set Olivia down gently and said, "Be careful. Don't fall over." "Okay." Olivia's head was still lowered. She looked at the water dripping from his clothes and asked, "Do you think I'm very clumsy?" Ethan almost broke into laughter. It was the first time he saw such a cute side to Olivia in such a long time. "Not at all. I know you didn't mean for that to happen. It's just that you're yet to recover. You should get changed so you don't catch a cold. I'll be going back to my room." "Okay." Olivia quickly closed her door and shook her head to dispel the thought of what happened out of her mind. Ethan also rushed back into his room. He looked at his shirt. It was a little stained. Then, he removed his contact lenses, undressed, and walked into the shower. His mind was filled with images of what happened at the pool while he was taking the hot shower. He felt a lump in his throat, and his body tensed. He murmured, "Liv." Chapter 820. Olivia calmed down after she washed up. She thought about how she had already been divorced from Ethan. It would be okay even if she married another man. Some intimate contact was nothing. Was she supposed to be a widow for life because of Ethan? Olivia held Alicia's hand as they were about to leave the room. Suddenly, Alicia stopped in her tracks and pointed at some greenish-purple liquid on the floor. "Mom, look." Olivia lowered her head to look. What was that? It looked like mulberry juice, but they didn't eat any mulberries that day. The cleaner came to clean up the room in the morning too. Why would there be such a significant stain on the door? Olivia opened the door and realized the floor had been mopped. However, it was still wet. The staff reminded them to be careful because the floor was wet. Olivia asked in confusion, "I thought you cleaned in the mornings and evenings. Why did you clean in the afternoon today?" "It's because a server tripped and dropped food everywhere, so we cleaned the place up. All right, thanks for letting me know. Olivia thought to herself that it was just a few drops of juice, probably accidentally spilled by someone else. Ethan didn't reappear for the rest of the day. Olivia didn't go looking for him either. But Alicia was clearly uneasy when the two of them were looking at the sunset by the beach. What's the matter? Alicia looked at the sunset and said, I miss Zach. They had been together since they were born. They were the same age, but Zach would always take care of her. When they were on the run with Jack, they would sometimes not have any food, so Jack would hunt rabbits or fish. They would always give her the most tender parts of the meat. When they were in cities, they let her take the first bite of everything they bought. They were twins, and they were meant to be together. She was very happy when she was with Olivia, but she never forgot about Zach, not even for a second. Olivia hugged her tightly. She missed Zach too. The days on the island were safe and reassuring, but Olivia was also thinking about Zach. They met very briefly and were separated quickly on the same night. He didn't even have the chance to call her Mom. Jack's phone number was no longer in use, and Olivia faked her death overseas. So Jack didn't know she was still alive. If she attracted too much attention, she would risk being discovered by Ethan. He would take her and Alicia away, and they would lose their freedom. There was only one way for her to find Jack. It was on the island where they first met and the people on the island. Maybe someone on the island was still in contact with him. She could find him through a third party. She needed to let him know she was alive, at least. She had no choice but to go back to Arlandia. She had to go even if Ethan might find her. The following day, Logan, who had been gone for the entire day, appeared again. He was respectful and distant, just like before, as if nothing had happened the previous day. Miss Fordham. Alicia was excited to see him. She held his hand and called out, Uncle Logan. Olivia would make his portion for breakfast whenever she made some food so he could experience the feeling of being at home. Sit down and eat. Thanks, Miss Fordham. He then looked at Olivia and said, You looked troubled, Miss Fordham. You can tell me what's on your mind. Maybe I can help.